Right, it's been a while since we've done a cube pusher, and here's one. I guess it was a Kickstarter. I picked it up used, as I pick up most of my games. Oh, this box feels wonderful. It's very heavy. It managed to get some overfunding achievement bonuses, and those are covered in a set of optional rules, and we'll play with some of them, but not all. So, this is, at heart, from what I can see, a soulless Euro. My wife and I we're going to give it a shot. I'm used to reading the rules to one of these Euros and kind of saying, okay, after, anywhere between 20 minutes and an hour it usually takes. This one, I read the rules, it kind of made sense, but it was so hard figuring out how to set it up. It uses one of these damn pictorial things, and then to figure out what the heck is going on. That we tried setting it up, and I couldn't figure that out well enough. There were so many pieces. They were set up in bags according to somebody's sorting preferences, where each player had like their starting stuff in a bag, but it's not really. And maybe there's been some errata that's changed some of that. And that may be what I'm facing. And then, these were divided up into bags in a way that didn't make sense to me, and I couldn't figure out what was what. And we just couldn't set it up. And I put it aside and said, I'll do a video on it and either figure it out that way or else give up on it. Well, I don't know if I could have done a good job of figuring it out, and I'm not sure I have, but pushing some pieces around and reading this at the same time helped a little bit. The guy who designed it is a graphic designer. Maybe he's looking at games from a different, perspective than the usual me, my way of looking at it, which is I expect the rules to be readable and me to get an understanding of what's the game's about and what it's trying to do. Unfortunately, with Euros, and the more soulless, the worse it is, and this one looks, as I said, to be on that soulless side. It's hard to kind of point to specifically who you are and what you're doing. I mean, obviously, in this one, you're running a company, but the tasks that you take are all kind of cube pushing tasks. And to try to figure out some kind of meaning behind them, you really have to stretch. I haven't finished setup with these. All right. So what is kind of cool about this and why it excited me, first of all, it had a cover that reminded me of a Martin Wallace cover. I don't remember which one. And I probably conflated the two and said, oh, I want this game. But also, not that I always liked Martin Wallace, but there's this cute design here. So you have this little building here, but as you improve it, it grows. It just keeps growing upward and upward as you get more and more pieces. And eventually you end up with this big skyscraper. And that, I don't know, that kind of thing appeals to me. Not as much as maps do, but whatever. Okay. So what is the goal of the game? The goal of the game is to collect points. Yeah, it's a Euro. Yeah, pretty much that's what it comes down to. And you get points. They're assigned to these different floors. So this has, I guess, 5 points assigned to it. And these are the early starting floors, and they're going to have less. And you go through a sequence of turns, which is spelled out here. Well, you have, they define this all out. You have 3 stages to the game, each with 3 rounds, each with 5 phases. Okay, great. But basically, the rounds translate to turns in the sense that you're doing the same thing each time. It's just at different stages, different things become available. So in the first stage of the game, there's only these few level 1 improvements available. When you go up, you go to level 2. Now, this was not clearly emphasized in the rules at all that I saw. It took me forever figuring this out, that this little doinker here, and of course if I had looked at the map and really studied it and everything, I would have seen it, indicates that it's phase 1 and there's a little doink, and that's just not bothered to be explained in the rules. This is the kind of thing that like causes me to walk away from the game until I have the time to set it up and really try to crack it. And it's not that complex a game, it's just kind of the rules are poorly presented, especially given all the image heavy aspect of it. This is shocking to me. All right, what do we got? So the way the game is actually set up, each person gets one of these at random, and otherwise their setup is pretty standard. Each of these in the base game comes with an improvement to your ground floor capabilities. You have these little cubes, which are your product stuff. I don't know what they're actually called. We'll just call them cubes. And these discs, which are your time markers. This is you, but as you get more and more employees in your company, this goes up. Now, the less employees, like if you're working alone, you get more money. You get this $9 each turn just as your income for being a company or whatever. But that goes down as you hire more people. And once you go up to 5 employees, you're going to be paying $3 a turn instead of making money. Now, each employee brings additional little time discs along with them. So if you were at 2 employees, you would have your starting 4 and 3 more. Each additional employee just adds 3. These indicate little processes that you can use, your time discs and maybe other resources you have. These are information. One guy over here has cash. You're going to start, you get your initial income right away as well. What I find kind of just somewhat disconcerting is the sorted bags of everything everybody was supposed to have all made sense, except each player had like $7 in cash, which you don't start with, and it's not what you get on your first turn. So I don't know what that related to. It may be some kind of errata in place. I don't have it available, and I'm not going to hunt it down. Okay, you have other process tools that are available to you up here. Now the ones you have here, you're going to be running all on your own. They're your own little world. But once you start playing in here, and it's not like it's something you're not going to do on the first turn. I'm not trying to imply that. But as you play on here, you're competing with and affecting other players. And then the final thing is you have this, hey, what's the economic condition? And we know that the current economic condition is going to be stable. Those cards have some values on the other side of it, which serve as kind of a randomizer. That deck is actually built randomly. There's twice as many cards available as the entire deck, and basically you take half that deck on a per card basis, shuffle it together, and you have, I guess it's 10 cards. Although 9 would make more sense. So maybe it's 9 cards. I'm not sure. But there may be 10 and there's just an extra one that you don't get to play with. Like I showed you, you have these little rooms, floors that you get to add to your building. You also have these tenant improvement rooms, which you can put in 2 places. You can either replace a ground floor capability with one of these, or you can put them on an empty floor. So here's an empty floor. Well, this has room for 2 new tenants to go into. So that's kind of cool. All the floors are available no matter how many players there are. So if you're playing in a low number of players, there may be more availability and choice to you. than there would be otherwise. There are other things that are limited by number of players, for example, the number of times you can build in a certain turn, etc. And we'll get into more of that as we go. And then this is how to set up the game, and lovely, it's a picture. It's not too bad, but you kind of have to have it all in front of you to start to understand any of this. And it all has to be sorted correctly before you can start making sense of it. And that's really what blocked me, was the, hey, I didn't have everything pre-sorted the way that made sense to me. Okay, so in each round, there'll be a number of different, I guess 5 different segments to that round. The first one's you receive income. You get the cash based on here. And that's fairly simple. Then you're allowed to hire new employees. Now there's going to be a popularity ranking based on these chits, and that can go up due to advertising and stuff. It also degrades automatically. This is randomized at the beginning of the game, and well, this is as random as anything else. I'll probably shake them up, but anyway. The person who's the most popular has the first option to hire an employee. Now this is the job market here. And this is the cost it would be to get a new employee. And I believe that's $5 and 5 information it's going to cost me. Yeah. Now, what's not clear is when it hits the maximum, can you still buy employees? I think you can. Buying an employee pushes your dude up, and we got these little tracks over here. You don't get your time discs immediately. Instead, what you get is this little thing saying, you've got a know-nothing employee. You've got to train him. So he's not going to be useful to you in the first round that you get him. So each player gets a chance to hire someone, and this moves forward. And then you get to keep going around until everybody's done hiring. And then you're allowed to schedule your business. And this again is done in popularity order, I believe, or maybe reverse. Yeah, in popularity order. The most popular player gets to do one thing. And basically they take a time disk, or more than one time disk in some cases, and put it somewhere. There may be other costs. So for example, if I want to do assembly, I would put 3 time disks here, and I would get another cube. Okay. And there's a number of different specifics there. And then each player, is going around in order, just doing these until everybody's used up all their time disks. You can also put your time disks on here, and these have their own specific rules each. One of the things you're able to do, okay, if you do it on your board, it's immediately resolved. If you do it over here, it's going to be resolved later in a city business phase or segment or whatever. One of the things you can also do is you can remodel. Now this isn't going to cost you a time marker. What it costs you is $3 and 3 information. And you get to change one of your basic rooms into one of these advanced rooms. Now the big bonus of all the the core game bonuses is that you start with one of these advanced rooms. Now the Kickstarter adds 2 that do not come with that. Social media doesn't come with one. It comes with an extra time marker each turn. And inheritance comes with $3 and an information at the beginning of the game, and that's all you get. You don't get a recurring bonus. Okay. So after you place all your discs, and we'll go into the specifics of where you can put things and what they do, you're able to conduct business. At this point, we handle each of these going down in sequence, and I've added an additional one from the Kickstarter here that I think I'm going to use, but we'll see. Then we hit a reorganization phase, which is really just kind of a maintenance segment in the game. First, you take any of your time markers and remove them from your board, and they go over into your stock. What's not clear is there's a general stock. I think it's an infinite-sized set of these discs. And if for some reason you have more discs coming to you than your color has available, or you have colored ones out on the board, you can take other colors, but you kind of don't want to play other people's colors on the board, or else you'll lose the advantage of it. Then you're allowed to downsize, which you drop your CEO a level, and you'll be getting rid of employees that way. You don't get any additional penalty from that. You'll just get less time. Then you get time markers equal to your employee track added to you. All the player markers on the marketing bonus track over here get dropped back to here. This is the default position. That's going to be set up during the business phase. You don't really have to do anything for it. Just the more popular you are, the more of a benefit you get there. Actually, maybe the more advertising you do. I'm not sure. We'll get there. The warehouse gets an additional supply cube if there's room for it at the most expensive space. Everybody shifts left in popularity. You have to maintain your popularity through advertising or other means. And the ordering stays intact throughout that. The job market will be moved according to this card. It'll tell you how many unemployed people there are. That'll move the cost of labor downward for everyone. Then the next economic forecast card slides into the current space, and that'll be the effective economy for that turn. But you don't flip it over. It stays face down. So you have to make your decisions based just on, hey, I know it's a depression, or, what we have at the first. I know we've got a stable economy and it's moving into depression. And that can affect your decision making. We move the turn marker, the round status forward. And at the end of round 3, we get the level 2 building pieces added over. And at the end of round 6, we get the level 3 building pieces. The game will continue going until either we've completed conduct business in the 9th round. Basically, we've finished all 9 rounds. Or if somebody has put 5 floor improvements into place. Now, there's room for 6 of them. You could conceivably be building more than one on the final turn. So if you were already at 4, you could build 2. And that would cause that to happen. And at that point, you add up however many prestige points you have, basically from the floors that you built, the room improvements you built. So if you start with one of these things, you start with 2 prestige. There's no place to track total prestige, so you're going to have to kind of paw through other people's stuff and count it if you want to know what the ranking is. We may do that a couple of times in the game. Whoever has the most total prestige is going to win the game. And if there's a tie, it's whoever has the highest popularity. And that will always be one person, even if you're both in the same space. So you'll never have a tied game, but you could have very close. All right, let's go over what the things on your building do that you start with. The assembly, 3 disks turn into a cube. Storage space, this doesn't actually allow you to do anything. It just gives you a place where you can keep a cube. Research and testing, this allows you to take a disk and a cube and turn them into 3 information. Training, you spend 2 of your disks and you can get rid of one of those ineffective worker markers. A meeting room, you can turn 1 disk into an information. And advertising, this is the most complicated. You can turn a disk, you put a disk here and you get another disk over here in the networking spot. Okay, you spend a disk to get one there. Actually, you probably don't have to track your spending, but it might be. I don't think it would give you any value. All the upgrades give you a slightly better option. For example, with assembly, if that upgrade's in place, instead of 3 disks for a cube, you spend 2 disks to build a cube. Each of these also has some kind of transition on it. I'm not going to go through them all. And likewise, the different floors may have transitions on them that they give you. So this one, for example, let's see, allows you to put a disk into creating a cube. What are these? Those are the number of times you can spend it. These you can spend an infinite number of times. Okay, the transitions over here are a little more complicated, and they're all kind of weird. So during scheduled business for the consulting firm, you get to put one of your disks from your working disks into the consulting firm, and you put it starting with the number 1. This is with all of the, almost all of these. You start with the lowest numbered one. Now in this case you have to pay a fee as well, $6 to put this here. That doesn't give you anything to begin with. But on the business phase, if you're over here, you'll get the amount of information listed as long as someone's filled that space. And then you're cleared from there and people move across. So it's sort of an investment in getting a big pile of information. If you put it in the early spaces, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a score from it. The later spaces, which are cheaper, are a little more difficult. If you failed by being down in one of these and nobody bought that one, and obviously you have an incentive to get that filled each time for the rest of eternity, you just lose out and your time marker disappears. So you want to make sure to judge how much these are going to get used. The advertising agency. During your scheduled business phase, again, you get to put one of these in here. They cost you $1 and 1 information to take any of these spaces. And then in order, starting with the person at the top, they get to choose either networking, print, or broadcast as their advertising mechanism. Now, if you choose networking as your advertising option, you spend your disk and you get 2 disks there. Okay, that sounds pretty cool somehow. If you choose print, you have to pay $1 and an information and you'll get your disk there. If you choose broadcast, it's $2, 2 information, and you get your disk there. Okay, what's up with that? Well, then what happens is you're going to get popularity. For every 3 disks in networking, you'll gain 1 point of popularity. For every 2 disks in print, you gain 1 point of popularity. whoever has the most discs in any given, and it has to be strictly the most, i.e. if two people are tied, nobody has the most. Whoever has the most discs in a particular section gets an additional point of popularity for kind of dominating that section. Now, all the discs that are used, which means if you had the most, it's all your discs in a particular section, are removed. But you get to keep your remainder, as it were, as long as it didn't contribute at all towards any popularity. Then we go to the marketing bonus. You do nothing during your scheduled business phase towards getting this. But in popularity order, everyone except the least popular person gets to pick one of these. And each of these come with sort of a bonus. So for example, this one, you get to do a remodel for $1 and an information. Remember, normally it's $3 and 3 information. That's pretty cool. This one gives you a free supply cube. This one free money, free information. This one gives you a disc for your next turn. Okay. Now, in a 2-player game, you wouldn't use the marketing bonuses, although there's an option to do so. Then we go to the warehouse. For the warehouse, during scheduled business, you get to buy the cheapest available warehouse good. And that gives you a cost in either money or information. You get to choose which you want to pay. And then you get that cube. Now, you have to be able to fit that cube in your storage closet or in some other ground floor location that can store cubes. I don't know if there are any others. If you can't, you've wasted your money or whatever. Then in the factory section, now when you did scheduling business, you are able to pay money, info, and a supply cube. So this is where your storage stuff goes. To put yourself in one of these spaces. And again, you go on the earliest space. And you put a time disk there. When it's time to conduct business there, your time disk from here gets to move over to the retail outlets. You're able to pick the price you want to set on your particular item. Now there's basically, this is not at all well explained, but I think there's these 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers divided by these dashed lines of product prices. And within any given tier, the actual price doesn't matter. So there's an advantage to being the first to market because you can pick, say, a 12 spot instead of a 10 or something like that. I'll explain how those sell out in a little bit. But the next thing that happens is the economic forecast. We flip over the current economic forecast card, and that's going to determine a couple of pieces of information. One is how many consumers there are, which will be based on the number of players cross-referenced with the card itself. And then the other is how many unemployed workers there'll be, which will be resolved as well. I think that's actually resolved later in the cleanup phase, although I'm not sure why it would be done there. Then we go to the retail outlets. Okay, you don't get to do anything for scheduling in this. You did your scheduling over in the factory, but when you resolved the factory, you moved things over to the retail outlets. During conduct business, you look at the economic forecast card, and that's how many consumers will buy stuff. Consumers will buy from the lowest tier first. And within that lowest tier, they'll take the most popular disc. Now there's one exception to this. Whenever you remove things from the factory, you can put them in liquidation and you immediately get the cash for that. And in fact, if all these spaces are filled, you must put into liquidation. It's only $3 and you can almost always put it somewhere more useful, but maybe you need the cash real quick and this lowest tier is full. Okay. So let's say there's 3 consumers. We would pick the 3 from here that are the most popular products. And of course, there's 2 different prices in that space. Only 1 disc can be in each space, so there's some competition that's going to happen from that. The next thing you do is the architect's office, but we'll get to that. That's a Kickstarter bonus. Is the construction company. Now, during your scheduled business phase, when you're actually placing the discs, you can put someone here in the construction company for $4 and 4 information. And you put them again starting with the 1. You can only fill up a number of boxes equal to the number of players that are there. So if only 3 people are playing, we can only get out to the 4 box, but we'll be playing with 6, so we'll get to the 8 box. That's going to give you the first, the 1 space gives you the first opportunity to buy one of these or one of these. Now to buy a floor, you pay $2 and 2 information, plus $2 and 2 information for each existing floor, including your ground floor, which means the second floor costs 4 and 4, and this little chart tells you. For these, they always cost 1 and 1, and you have to put them somewhere. They can go on your ground floor, and they negate the ground floor advantage of whatever place you have. They can also go on top of an empty floor, or they can go on top of another one of these, and they cancel that one out. The thing is, though, you still get whatever prestige values of all the advantages you've bought. So even if you negate an advantage, you still get victory points for it. Then we go into specifics of each of the different improvements, and we'll worry about this more, I think, when we're actually playing. I want to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter overfunding stuff. A couple of different specialty tiles, I threw them in. Some additional floor improvements. There's just one. I don't know what it is. A couple of additional tenant improvement tiles. These things, which don't really help much. Some additional economic cards. 2 new ones, a Windfall and Great Depression, which you can shuffle into the deck. I didn't do it, but they could change things. Economic scenarios that indicate how you design the deck. So there's like, a Great War scenario. There's a Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression scenario, etc. There's an event deck. I'm playing with all the things that are tenant improvements, the floor improvement, the skyline achievement. This is an extra bonus of points. At the end of the game, the owner of this achievement scores 1 additional prestige point for each floor improvement they've purchased, including the skyline achievement, which means it's going to be worth 5 prestige points maximum, is what they say. I don't believe that because you can go up more than that. So, okay. The scenario cards tell you how to build the deck. These are a couple special, exceedingly bad or good economies. The event deck itself, you shuffle this, draw a card at random, and it's going to indicate a special effect to one of these board areas, which I didn't really want to add. But the architect's office sounds kind of cool. It's just in addition to the situation. It's got 2 options, one for 3 or more players, one for 2 players. And what this gives you is during scheduling business, you can put a time in there, a time marker in there for whatever the cost is, 2 and 2. But then you pay money and info equal to the number of consumers of the current round, and this will allow you to get the first choice of any of the tenant improvements or floor increases. It lets you trump the first guy in here. So it's kind of an interesting little choice, and I really like the concept of it, so I wanted to add it. And look how it just kind of melts into the board nicely. I have to say, the appearance of this game is very appealing, and the components are very nicely done as well. So that's what we have. We're going to see how well it plays. Probably not to my taste, given that it's a cube pusher, but it's always interesting to explore, these new designs, and it'll be fun to watch the buildings grow, I think. I don't think it's going to be too big a headache. All right, send it up.